Okay, good evening, everyone. The Red Bank Planning Board will now come to order this. It's not the 26th of March. What is it, the 11th? The 11th of March, 2026. The time is 7:05 p.m. This meeting is being held in accordance with the public laws of 1975, Chapter 231. An adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Asbury Park Press and Two River Times, posted in the main lobby of this building, as well as on the municipal website. Roll call, please.
Mayor Portman, absent. Shauna Ebanks, present. Christina Bonatakis. Dan Mancuso. Louis Demento. Barbara Boas, absent. Megan Massey. Here. Wilson Beebe. Itzel Hernandez. Frederick Stone, absent. And Brian Parnigan. Thank you.
The mayor gets a hard pass since it's his birthday. Once a year. We've got a couple of administrative matters as we still wait for our planner. We have the regular meeting minutes of February 11th. Does anyone have any additions or changes? If not, would someone like to approve the minutes? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? I'm not voting. I think I was here, but I couldn't vote on the application. Right. Okay. Then we have the resolution for 183 Doctors James Parker Boulevard, Block 90, Lot 1201. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the resolution, which is incredibly lofty? I know we talked a lot that night, but wow. Yes, it really is. Does anyone have a motion? And a second?
Second.
All in favor? I will abstain as I did not vote on that application. We have the public hearing for 2628 Shrewsbury Avenue. It's the rehab plan presentation by our planner, BFJ Planning, and Susan is still not here. So everybody just, what do you got?
We have an item to discuss on an extension of approval. Mark's going to talk about it. Just turn on your mic.
So the garden at Red Bank was a cannabis use that was approved by the board for site plan approval back in 2024. And essentially
This is the old Exxon station at the
Yes.
bridge.
Right. They are currently in litigation with the borough because the borough only had a certain number of licenses to give out. I think they knew when they came before the board that there was no license available. Nevertheless, they proceeded. They got the site plan approval. They are now coming to us and saying that they would like an extension of that approval. The approval itself doesn't expire, but they have a protection against any zoning changes. This was a completely variance-free application, and as long as the council doesn't change anything about the ordinance, they can build on this into perpetuity. But they're asking for an extension on the protections that would be given to them from such a change, asking for a 1-year extension. Their validation for that is that they say they are diligently pursuing all necessary approvals. And what the approval that they're pursuing is the ability to operate a cannabis use at the site in which they are suing the borough. I leave this to the board whether you want to grant that extension or not based upon that argument. They could theoretically build the building without the cannabis use inside of it. Again, it's a variance-free application. So nothing's preventing them from building the structure that they want to build, except for the fact that they can't get a license, which they knew they couldn't get in the first place, and they're suing the town for. So I personally don't have an objection to granting the extension. I don't think it hurts anything, but at the same time, I could totally understand that the board wouldn't buy the argument that they're being held up from building the building.
Well, you're right. They're not being held up from building the building. And if, you sue the borough of Red Bank and cost the taxpayers money for said lawsuit, I'm not a fan of extensions in those situations.
It shouldn't be a reason that you either grant or deny the,
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to say something
no,
like
the
that.
extension.
Well, that being said, if someone wants to make a motion to grant an extension, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I will make a motion to deny if no one makes a motion to approve. This is the Exxon gas station at the bridge.
Which everyone agrees that if built would be a tremendous improvement from
Yeah.
what's currently there. So again, it's the board's decision, however. Go ahead.
Borough has no more license, and we're not.
I
expecting
understand
to
that.
Extend any more license. So,
But if the
Could
court-
it
if
be
the
that
court
we did
forces
not-
us to,
If the
yeah,
court-
if the court forces us to,
Right.
but could it be that we deny the extension because of, I'm just asking legally, what's
Yes.
in our legal purview? Can we deny it because we have no more license, nor,
I believe you could, for the reason I said that they're not being prevented from building the building. So the holdup that is causing the holdup is that they are diligently suing the borough to create a license, which the borough has told them that they're not going to create, which is different than they need like DEP approval or they need any of those type of approvals, which are normally the type of approvals that you hear in these cases.
did they get NJDOT approval
I don't know.
as they're on Route 35? And
I do not know the answer to that. This does not say this. I have a feeling, and I'm reading between the lines here, that they haven't pursued anything until they know that they can get the license from the town, because why invest the money in anything if they don't get the license?
that's correct, because they're not even through resolution compliance. Because once they realized they weren't going to get the license, they halted everything,
Right. That's
even
what I would
like
imagine.
escrow replenishment.
I would recommend that if the board is inclined to deny this application, that you give Mr. Jenkins, who wrote this letter, an opportunity that the board's inclined to deny the request. This is not an application, it's a request. And give him an opportunity to come before the board and put on a case as to why it should be granted rather than us just deny it. That would be my recommendation. If you're
I
inclined
think
to
that's fine.
grant
If he
it,
wants to come and pitch it, that's fine with me.
if you're inclined to grant it, however, then there's no need for that, and I feel comfortable with you doing that today.
It's a variance-free application.
It was.
Building, and so they have the approval. Correct.
Unless the borough changes the zoning ordinances and creates new setbacks or whatever the
So
case
if
may
the
be.
license were to become available, like one of the current cannabis facilities were to go out of business, are they next in line?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't-
they are next in line. So
Okay.
the borough's local cannabis board did grant them the license, and they are on the waiting list should an application become available.
So in that instance, they would be able to build the building unless the county.
Yes.
They're able to build the building now.
But
They'd be allowed to operate there with a license, yeah.
Yes.
I'm fine with him coming in and selling his pitch if he wants to. Either that or I'll make a motion to deny it.
I was gonna say, if they were to build in absence of a license, they would have to come to this board for any change of use.
Correct.
If they proceeded.
100%. But there's nothing prohibiting them, as far as I can tell, with them building the shell of a building that they were approved to build.
And there's no timeline for response that we're obligated to as far as that letter.
No, listen, if you're gonna deny this, if you're inclined to deny it or you're thinking about denying it, then you should give Mr. Jenkins an opportunity to come before the board and present his case.
They were cognizant of that there were no more licenses, right? When,
Yes.
Did they say that or did they pretend that they didn't know when they
I
were here?
didn't say new, I
Several
remember.
times in the hearing, we did mention that we had no more license,
Yeah.
and they decided to continue to pursue.
I
Okay.
remember being puzzled about why.
But it was a variance-free application. That was.
And
are they
up against a deadline?
They're not. So they're up against a deadline, and as far as zoning protection is concerned, because you're protected from any changes in the zoning ordinance for a period of 2 years.
Okay.
And as long as, but again, if the council doesn't change the zoning ordinances, then it's forever until the zoning ordinance changes. So they're just asking, I'm sure what it is that they are nervous that if the timeline expires, the easy way for the borough to deal with it is to change the zoning. And they wouldn't have a building to build, and they'd have to come back here. I'm sure that's part of their thought process. Again, I just question whether this,
Love cannabis.
well, we don't decide the use. So
It's
I would
permitted.
stay away from that. It is a permitted
for
use
council.
on the site.
They're not that.
Yes. Okay.
So
Tell them to come in.
yeah, I make.
All right. So there's not going to be any motion tonight then. We're gonna, Shauna will call Mr. Jenkins. She will tell him that he should appear at the next hearing if he wishes to make his case. Okay,
Better be a good one.
okay.
Susan, welcome back. So as I was saying before, this is 2628 Shrewsbury Avenue Rehabilitation Plan. It's Susan Favate from BFJ Planning as our planner, and she's here to tell us all about this site.
Seems like Susan's here every single meeting.
Thank you.
It's all you.
Thank you, board. Is it easiest for me to share, Shauna?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to share the presentation. It's about 15 slides or so not too long. Can everybody hear? Okay, that's good. Okay. It's coming up. I can see it on my screen. There we go. Let me. All right. Full screen coming up. So as the chairman said, this is 2628 Shrewsbury Avenue, a rehabilitation plan. You all have previously had experience with a redevelopment plan, same statute, which I'll go through, but slightly different ramifications for rehab versus redevelopment. But this is a proposal that came from the property owner, and under the state law, they're empowered to ask for a rehabilitation plan. So the council has empowered you as a board to undertake this plan. And I'll take you through the key elements. So we'll start with just kind of the background, how we got here, what the process is for, I say redevelopment, but it's actually rehab, but it's still under the redevelopment law. Planning context and goals, how this relates to your master plan and other documents. And then I'll take you through the parameters of the plan. For those of you, I think all of you were here, except Megan, for the train station redevelopment plan. This is a lot simpler. It's a much smaller site. There's sort of 2 buildings. It's a much different scale than that project. So a little bit simpler in that regard. Just a refresher on the local redevelopment and housing law, the LRHL. This is what rehab falls under, like redevelopment. And similar to the redevelopment tool, it does give municipalities some flexibility in terms of the zoning tools and financial tools that are available to them to facilitate revitalization of specific sites, as long as they meet certain criteria or are so designated. But differently, and unlike a redevelopment designation, rehab is a bit of a smaller scale. It does not provide for some of those long-term financial benefits like pilots. So pilots are not on the table here. The borough is not empowered to give them under rehabilitation, nor are they empowered to use eminent domain as a tool. But otherwise, it's very similar to the redevelopment tool and process, with the exception of this particular application or proposal did not require a separate designation. If you remember in the redevelopment process, first you have to go through the area in need of redevelopment process and study and designation. This was simply added to the borough's existing rehabilitation area that's been in place since 2017. So all of that has already been done in terms of deciding that this property, it makes sense to include in the rehabilitation area. There was no new designation required to get to this point. So we basically go straight to a rehabilitation plan, which, like a redevelopment plan, sort of acts in the place of zoning. It sort of sets the parameters for uses, design elements, gets into a lot more detail than traditional zoning in terms of design, community amenities, public improvements, et cetera. So it's a good tool for the borough to use, to have in its sort of toolbox. So planning context. This is, I think you're all fairly familiar with the site. It's on Shrewsbury Avenue, just before the bridge, borders the swimming river. It's a waterfront property. And you can see on the image to the right, in orange is the existing rehabilitation area. Again, it's been in place for, since 2017. It covers most of the downtown area, some carve outs. And this site is in blue, as you can see, maybe barely, kind of on the edge of that rehab area, but included within the rehabilitation area. Okay, so a little bit of context on the site in particular. It's actually two parcels. It's block 39, lots 30 and 31. One of the parcels, I think it's 30. One of the two is the narrow one, which is essentially the driveway to the site. The other parcel is the bulk of the 1.275 acre site. So just over 1.25 acre, again, along Shrewsbury Avenue, bordered by Shrewsbury, the New Jersey Transit tracks, and the Swimming River. It's just south of the marina area. It's mostly used currently as a parking lot, surface parking lot. So it is nearly 100% impervious paved currently. Actually sits a little bit down a hill. If you're familiar, you can kind of see and look down. There are two curb cuts on Shrewsbury Avenue into the site. There's a one-way circulation system. And then there is also pedestrian access down to the site via a staircase because of that grade change that occurs. A portion of the site is within a floodplain designated by FEMA, and there are some wetlands associated with the river as well. So this does require DEP approval. I believe that they're already involved with the applicant for this particular development. It's currently within the Waterfront Development WD district. So as you'll see, there are some standards and provisions of that district that will remain. But then we've looked at some tailored provisions here in the rehabilitation plan that are related to this particular development. Okay, so what the developer has proposed is a two-building complex, all condominiums, 40 total units. Again, in those two buildings, one sort of faces and overlooks the Swimming River. The other one is parallel to that and more overlooks Shrewsbury Avenue. There's a proposed one single curb cut driveway down into the site to reach parking, which is proposed underneath the building. So there's a total of 20 complex duplex condos. It's 4 stories over the parking, and there are six affordable units, which represents a 15% set aside, which are proposed to be located on the site. And then another aspect of this public amenity here is that there would be proposed or provided as part of this development a public walkway, 10-foot wide public walkway along the extent of the site that borders the Swimming River. So that would be a new public resource available along the river. Okay. So as part of this process, like I think the borough does with most of its redevelopment type processes, there was a community meeting. A public meeting was held in the senior center in December. There were about 40 folks who came that night. And I think we're, coming and open and willing to listen. And I think there was, a mix of support, as you can imagine. But I think 4 kind of key concerns that were raised at that meeting. The first is really about the aesthetics, the design, the architecture of the building, whether that is the material of the building, just kind of how it looks, how the parking is screened. It is within a structure, it is within the building itself. So there was some concern to make sure that that was screened appropriately from neighboring properties. And then the views to and from the river as well were of concern. As is often the case, traffic was a concern. This is a tough intersection nearby on Shrewsbury. The multiple curb cuts to the site currently don't help that. So we talked at that meeting about how actually the consolidation of the curb cuts into one could actually improve things a bit from a traffic standpoint. But there was also concern that it's right next to the New Jersey Transit rail line. People wanted to make sure that particularly during construction, there are no impacts to rail service. And then sustainability, I think there were a lot of folks who really were interested and wanted to see green building, green infrastructure, the use of native plantings, non-invasive plantings along the walkway in particular. And then connected with that, the open space and public realm, just a lot of concern to make sure that this walkway truly feels public, that it is welcoming, that it is very clear that it is not a private resource for the residents, but it's very much open to all borough residents. And then also a desire to improve the sidewalk along Shrewsbury from what currently exists. So all of those comments and that feedback were taken into this plan, and there were some changes that the applicant made to the design as a result of these comments, and they were all incorporated within the parameters of the plan. So contents of the rehabilitation plan. First, there's a description of the area, both in terms of a map and then the block and lot. Overview of the process, the goals and a relationship to local objectives. The goals are specific to this rehabilitation plan and this site. They have been developed particularly to this particular proposal. And then we go through all of the different development parameters in terms of the overall uses, design, bulk and lot, I'm blanking, bulk standards, and parking and all of those aspects of development. There is a requirement in the state statute of plan consistency review. You have to look at how it relates to your own master plan, the county master plan, as well as your neighboring community master plans. There's a section on implementation, what happens next, basically the borough council's role, and then compliance with existing borough statutes, regulations, and then definitions that are particular to this rehabilitation plan. So in terms of the goals, as I said, these are specific to this rehabilitation plan. You'll see that there's a lot of overlap with your own master plan, the borough-wide master plan. So the first one really is about diversity of housing, providing new and expanded housing types, both market rate and affordable. I think that's very much in keeping with the borough's master plan. The master plan for the borough, as you recall, does talk a lot about the Shrewsbury Avenue corridor, mostly in the neighborhood business zone, which is not in this zone, but we do think that there is a connection about strengthening the overall Shrewsbury Avenue corridor, both through public realm and pedestrian improvements, but also bringing in new residents who can support that local business district. Another goal is about expansion of public access to the swimming river. That is certainly a long-held goal by the borough in its master plan and previous master plans as well. Another goal speaks to reducing the amount of impervious coverage. As I mentioned, this is nearly 100% impervious site. So despite it being proposed for new development, it actually will result in a somewhat reduction of impervious coverage. So there'll be a little bit more green on this site actually as a result of this development. So that is in keeping with the goal of reducing impervious coverage, improving stormwater management, reducing that heat island effect that has been identified for the borough. The next goal speaks to architecture that is appropriately scaled, that is appropriately designed and uses the materials and overall design and finishes that speak to what the borough already has in terms of its local vernacular and context. Next goal is about adequate utilities, water, sewer, electric, stormwater, and gas to ensure that that is serving the development and it's being done effectively and sustainably as well. And then lastly, the final goal is about mitigating environmental impacts by incorporating sustainable and green elements into building and design and infrastructure. Okay, so just to get into the details of this rehab plan, it's pretty simple in terms of the permitted uses. There's only really one category of principal permitted uses. It's multifamily, which includes this condo proposal. So multifamily dwellings, both market rate and affordable, low and moderate income units. And then as accessory to those, the waterfront walkway is the key accessory use along the swimming river, but also anything else that is generally seen as accessory to a multifamily residential use. But fairly straightforward on the uses. In terms of the bulk requirements, as I said, some of these actually don't change from the waterfront development district, but we're replicating those here. So minimum lot area is one that doesn't change. It's 45,000 square feet. That's what exists now. Minimum lot frontage, 140 feet. Density is 40 units or 35 units to the acre, whichever is more. Floor area ratio 2.5. Maximum lot coverage, which actually the way the borough defines it is building coverage here. So that's 65%. And then impervious coverage would be 80% maximum. Minimum unoccupied open space, again, not a change from the WD district, 20%. And maximum building height, 5 stories, 60 feet, which is proposed in this plan to be defined slightly differently than the borough defines it. Pretty similar, but some slight differences. So 5 stories, 60 feet. And then in terms of setbacks, some of these, the rear is the same as the WD, 25 feet. The front yard setback is 15 feet off the street. Smaller side setback is 3 feet and the combined is 12. So a lot of that really is being dictated by the nature of this site as well as the proposed development. Parking ratios are 1.5 per unit, which I think is consistent and comparable with an area that is, not necessarily TOD. It's not right at a train station, but it is certainly walkable to the train station in the downtown. And some of that is being achieved on this fairly small site by the use of tandem parking, assigned parking. These are going to be all for the residents, so they are going to be people who are used to coming into these spots day to day, and they are going to be coordinating the use of that tandem and reserve parking. There's a requirement for bicycle parking per unit, and that needs to be secured indoor storage. The EV, electric vehicle parking standards are the same as the borough's existing requirements. And then we also looked at loading areas just to make sure that there's enough room in here to maneuver in terms of move in, move out, deliveries, parcel drop off, passenger pickup, Uber, that type of thing, just to make sure that there is that circulation. And in particular, that you can accommodate a 30-foot box truck, which is similar or equivalent to what you would typically see in a residential type of a development. Okay, so the design standards, I'm not going to go through in great detail. Some of them are similar to what was at the train station, but it's clearly a different site, different context. So we do get into ways to mitigate the massing of buildings, break up the facades, articulate the buildings. We talk about balconies and how far they can extend, things like that. Building materials, red brick is called out as a preference, at least for a good portion of this building. We speak to signage, and in fact, there's a proposal here to incorporate a mural into this building that would be visible from the Shrewsbury entrance into the borough. And landscaping, screening, fencing, walls, and lighting. In terms of lighting, things like dark sky compliance. There are regulations on how high the retaining walls can be, required buffering areas between this site and adjacent properties. There are sustainable and green design provisions. And then there are also detailed provisions for the waterfront walkway itself in terms of minimum width. It needs to be reached by a sidewalk that is fully accessible from Shrewsbury, 5-foot minimum. There are proposals to improve the existing sidewalk on Shrewsbury. And then there are also requirements for plantings along both that sidewalk and the public walkway. And then lastly, utilities and mechanicals, some of the technical standards there. So other requirements that will come into play, particularly when it comes to you for site plan approval, at the time of site plan, they will need to submit detailed elevations, renderings. You are authorized to ask for a materials board if you really want to see how those materials look and feel. Stormwater management plan will be compliant with the borough's standards. There's this required 15% affordable housing set aside, has to be all on site, no in lieu payments allowed. And there are provisions for construction and phasing, ensuring that there are no impacts to rail infrastructure. That was something that came up in the workshop. And then we talk about property encroachments. There are actually some existing encroachments onto this property from the neighboring property. So those are going to need to be removed as part of this development, and then potential offsite improvements. Okay, so I think this is last slide, actually. I ran through it. I'm happy to take questions from the board as well as the public. Just wanted to give you a sense of what happens next in terms of implementation. If you all are satisfied with this plan tonight or at a later date, your step would be to make a recommendation to the Borough Council that they adopt this rehabilitation plan. They're the body that actually adopts the plan. Once the plan is in place, similar to a redevelopment plan, it does become the zoning for the area. It's imposed on this site, and that governs the future development of the site. At that point, the Borough Council will consider designation of a redeveloper for this property, likely the existing property owner, and they will work with that owner to develop a detailed redeveloper agreement that really gets into a lot of those details on not so much financing here because pilots are not an aspect here, but just the expectations of that developer for the borough. While that's being done, or they'll be preparing their site plan application to you, and then ultimately will come before you just like any site plan application does. And so that is when you will be somewhat bound by this plan in the sense that they will likely come in with a variance-free application. That's the sort of the point of doing this plan, is that you're trying to capture a lot of the constraints of this site in the plan. So it's not anticipated that they would need any relief. There are provisions for that if they do end up needing relief. But when they come to you, you will really be able to dig into those details on design in particular and how that public space functions, the sidewalks, et cetera. So it's not like you have to rubber stamp it. You definitely will have some input on that. The public will have additional opportunity to weigh in on that site plan. I spoke to the relief possibility. If they need some minor relief on bulk standards, anything in terms of parking, the typical planning board bulk standards, those can be granted by you. But anything else generally needs a plan amendment or another body would look at that potential relief. And as I said, there'll be additional opportunity for public review. Public review will be part of the Borough Council's actions as well. All that they do is in their public meetings, as is typical with their work. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I have the plan ready to look at if folks have questions, comments, concerns from the board first, perhaps.
Does anyone from the board have any questions for Susan about the plan? Go ahead.
Thanks.
This is a process of negotiation between the borough and the developer and us. Can you describe a little bit about the conversations in the meetings that have occurred with the developer in terms of negotiating these details? What some of the concessions were, what some of the sticking points were? I'd like to appreciate a sense of that.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, it's been a fairly straightforward process. They initially came in with the proposal. They kind of laid out what they needed. There were some conversations about the details of that. We kind of pushed back a little bit on some of the design. I know there were concerns raised at the public meeting about the size of the mural that was originally proposed. It was really significant. And so they came down on that. They've made some minor changes in design. There was also discussion about potentially extending the walkway or connecting it with the walkway over the bridge. And they did explore that with a neighboring property owner. It's not really possible based on the property lines and particularly the topography makes it really difficult. So it was really kind of those details. I don't think that there were major, I would say, concessions because they came in with a fairly clean project in terms of what they needed. Sean, I don't know if you had any.
Yeah,
thing to-
just to add, we talked a lot about the walkway leading from the street
Mhm.
to the waterfront. That was a lot of back and forth with the developer on how the public can access it without feeling like they're encroaching into a private development, making it feel like they're welcome. So there was a big redesign about that and how wide the that walkway should be and the landscaping that goes along there. There was also a lot of conversation about the access points to the underground the garage and how that was going to be handled when it comes to delivery, moving trucks, taxi pickup, things like that. Also, we talked a lot about the courtyard space and the materials used there for the courtyard space. A lot of the concession was making it from concrete to pervious, making it more sustainable. Same thing with the building material and ways that we can involve green roofs, more environmentally friendly aspects. So there was a lot of talks about that and negotiations about what the borough was looking for when it comes to this project. And even one concession was moving, I guess, the entrance that was close to the train tracks itself and to move it on the opposite end, giving us more front yard green space. That was
Bit on
another.
signage too.
Yes, and the sign.
Initially, they had proposed a blade sign, that extends perpendicular, and that was requested to be changed. because I think that's not really in keeping with the borough's regulations.
Mhm.
So they made some tweaks on their proposed signage, and I think they shrunk it down a bit as well.
Yeah. But I think the main focus was making sure that the path to the water was welcoming to anyone that walks off that street. That it's not just for the residents that live there, but it's all for the public. That was our main focus, really, is that if the developer did come in originally with making that a public access and wanting to develop that space for us, for the public, but we had to still tweak it to make sure that it accommodated our residents that walk to that area.
Is there anything that we would have desired that we determined wasn't practicable and was within the developer's purview to say, no, we can't go there. It's not within, our plan.
The only one that comes to mind is the potential connection to existing riverfront walkways or pathways, and it really wasn't feasible. They did look at it. So it wasn't like they just said, we're not going to do it. They said it's just not possible.
Mhm.
Nothing else jumps out. Sean.
I mean, I actually have to touch on this. The affordable housing, they did offer to put the units off-site, and we were very adamant that all units had to be on the site. We were no longer accepting applications where developers place off-site
That's right.
units.
Very early on.
Yeah, and that, I guess, the one thing that it was was the increasing in the percentage of affordable units. We would have liked them to go up to 20%. But because of the constraints of the property, with the DEP permitting and everything like that, financially it just wouldn't have worked for them to increase that number to 20%. But they did meet what our sliding scale set aside for affordable housing would be. So they're not going under, they're meeting it.
Mhm.
Wondering what the conversation was in regards to safety, since it's so close to the train tracks. It just makes me, anything where anybody can walk onto that makes me nervous. Wondering if residents flagged that, or if that's like something that that was considered or thought.
Yeah, it was discussed with them that both during construction and once this is open, that they'll need to have provisions and coordinate with New Jersey Transit just to make sure that there is not access, from this building or this site to the tracks. And then also obviously during construction that we're mitigating any construction impact on the service. But that's definitely been discussed with them, and it's a provision of the plan that coordination needs to be ongoing. And I think that'll also be part of the redeveloper agreement that the Borough Council probably undertakes.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board have any questions?
Susan, can you talk a little bit? I know we mentioned the green roof, which is generally a borough-wide obligation. We kept it here, but it sounded like we open an alternative for a cool roof if that's not feasible. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's provision that, you do need you have an existing green roofs regulation in your code. But if that's not feasible, given that this is a fairly small site, and it may not be feasible with the particular buildings, that there is an option to use the cool roof approach in combination with the landscaping on the site. So I think also because this is an existing 100%, nearly 100% impervious coverage lot, it's going to be greener by de facto green. And so that they could achieve some of those same goals through some of the on-site landscaping in combination with a green roof or cool roof type approach.
I have a couple questions. Are the pergola structures on the roof, are they allowed to exceed the 60-foot height requirement?
Let me confirm that. That's why I have the plan open.
It's up here.
Because that would fall under the definitions. Sorry, I got to reopen it. course, this is when the computer decides not to work. Okay. Getting there.
I think just another comment, which, I think, I mean,
Okay.
speaking for myself, I don't actually, you don't really notice this site right now because there's nothing on it,
Mhm.
but it's quite a prominent site if you were to build a building like this as a sort of gateway, welcoming,
Mhm.
kind of confronting architecture as you're coming in Monmouth County 10 over the Shrewsbury River or Swimming River into town. Just a comment for the board, like this is just as we're considering this and the building and what's being proposed from a massing standpoint and everything.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's an important site. And I think that's why when it comes to you for site plan, you will have input and opportunity to weigh in on that design. I think because it is a little bit down, for lack of a better word, in a hole, it does actually allow you to think about a building that maybe might not be so visually apparent as otherwise it would be if it were a flat site. So it gives you actually a little bit of room there. I do have an answer for you on the pergolas. So the definition that is particular to this rehabilitation plan, it makes clear that structures, semi-permanent structures like pergolas specifically mentioned and gazebos are not considered a story unless they occupy more than 20% of the roof area. And then those elements are capped at 12 feet. So I think they're not considered part of the overall height because they're not a story, but they are no more than 12 feet on top of that roof.
So you could go 72 feet to the top of the pergola,
In theory.
5-story, okay.
Yeah, but it's limited in scale at the top of that roof to no more than 20%. So you're not talking about the whole
To no more than 20% of the roof
of the
area.
roof area. Yeah.
Okay.
And are the areas behind the pergola elevator shafts?
Yes, and those, thank you, Dan, those may extend 15 feet in height above the roof. So,
Hi, I just have a couple questions. With the affordable housing, is there a way that we could encourage up to 20% just because there are a few developers in town that are meeting the 20% requirement? And wondering as a bargaining chip, if would be open for like a density bonus if they meet the 20% or not get the 20% like real big A affordable housing, but provide like workforce housing or something. I know the developer is wanting to make the most out of it, but if there's a way that they can win with more units and then there's more opportunity for a diversity of housing.
I think it's limited here because I don't think that they actually can get more units on the site, more than they already have,
With the
because
height?
you can't really park it. And so then to
Okay.
have a density bonus, I think may not be that attractive for them
Okay.
because it may not be feasible.
Okay.
I mean, there's certainly the 15% is a minimum. So I think the borough could continue to encourage that and work with them if there's a way for them to increase that set aside. But I don't know that a density bonus is going to be that effective in this
Okay.
particular case. It usually would be.
Yeah.
But I think they're so limited on the size of
On
the
the
site.
size,
Yeah.
okay. And then I just saw in E1 of the rehab plan, can we change the language to, instead of encouraging green infrastructure or green, I didn't like totally write it down, but can it be required? I'm not sure if we can make that change.
Do anything you want to do.
Oh.
Well, you know, it says,
Sorry.
By the way, Megan, thank you for blowing Facebook up by mentioning density.
You're
I
welcome.
can't wait to get home and read all the
I
comments.
mean, I already saw the faces.
But,
It's okay.
but we've had this conversation before. This is the board's plan. So if the board wants to put whatever language it wants into the plan, it can do so. Ultimately, the borough would be the one adopting it, but if the board is recommending this and writing this plan, which they are, it can be whatever language you want. And this is the same thing we had when we were dealing with the last redevelopment plan. This is not a redevelopment plan, it's a rehabilitation, but it's the same principle apply.
it's also interesting, we're going to have another discussion of should versus shall. because
Oh.
the, don't worry, it won't be lengthy. The existing language actually says sustainable green site and building design methods shall be incorporated to the maximum extent practicable and will be required in the future redeveloper agreement. So,
Oh,
There was no encouraged?
there's encouraged
it-
somewhere.
there's encouraged later, I think, where
Okay.
it gets to the specific methods.
Okay,
So it talks about green stormwater infrastructure, green roofs, high energy appliances, LED lighting, all of those things it says are encouraged. So I read that as, and we're welcome to, it's
To, like,
as he said, it's
I mean, I don't
human.
like, if if it's something the board specifically wants, then it shouldn't use the word encouraged.
Yeah.
Because encouraged,
Encourage appears 9 times.
yeah. And
In the
so-
document.
So encouraged should not be there. If these are, because encouraged means, okay, thank you for encouraging us,
Yeah.
we're not gonna do it.
So I think
This
maybe
is the
one,
same discussion we had.
it's the
at
same.
train
Same
station.
discussion.
because I think it's
Yeah.
similar language.
Oh, yeah, you weren't allowed to, that's right, you weren't involved in that, that's true.
You're consistent. So I think maybe one approach could be where we say, we have this long list of tools that could get you there, solar ready construction and all these different strategies, and it just says are encouraged. Maybe we replace that with shall be considered, as part of that.
Shall be considered as the same thing as encouraged.
The way you
Shall
could
be
write it.
required.
Yeah.
If this is the list of type of things that you were encouraging.
Right.
Then it should be, you shall do this using one of these methods.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to not require them to use any one because we don't know what's
Right.
most feasible.
So you give them, a list, but say you shall do this using one of these methods.
They encourage them to come in and wow us, but that's the only encouragement there should be.
Okay, that's not a difficult change to make.
and then I was also gonna say, just to flag potentially the issue, I think sometimes with new developments, they need to have a 25-foot setback from the
Line.
active rail line. I don't know if that exists right now or not.
Okay.
And then,
It should. I looked at a map. It
Okay.
should. I was looking at that corner unit and that they can touch the sidewalk, but the train station's further away. And I bet you,
no, I'm saying like the active tracks.
I meant the track.
Track,
It looks, it might be 25 feet, but that's something, it's close, but
And I don't know if this is more for site plan approval, but once with like window selection, I think we have to be very like
Yes.
required.
The noise
The
attenuating.
noise, because
Yes.
I mean, that is a very dangerous crossing as is, and they are blowing that horn a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes.
I know
So,
all about it.
yeah.
Yep. My
Um,
house
I'm
has
in
such
earshot
a
of
rail. I
4
wish I
grade
had noise
crossings from
attenuating.
my bedroom window.
Yeah,
And-
it's the honking,
All night
it's all
long.
just the regular
Oh, my God, yeah. please.
back and forth.
I'm like,
And-
what are they doing? It's 3:30 in the morning. Put the trains to bed.
They can't. They are probably putting the trains to bed.
Yeah, but don't
Yeah.
put them to bed by my house. Please.
Just 2 more things.
Sure.
Just for the boards, what do you guys think about maybe, because 1.4 ratio for parking
Right there with you. I'm right.
is
we're
more
right-
like a suburban feel.
We're on.
Can we get closer to like 1.2?
9.
Maybe 1? I would love 1, but I am just one person.
Can one be the bonus if they do 20% affordable housing?
Whoa.
Half a space requirement if you do 20%.
Or workforce housing.
Yeah, I
Do
love
the
workforce
mix
housing,
of
yeah.
the workforce housing, because it's still at a moderate.
What,
it's-
what would be the lowest ratio that you all would feel comfortable with? You said 1.2, 1.1?
Oh, I would always say 1, because I mean, you're in a 5-minute walk to the train station.
So maybe we can say, as a bonus for increasing the affordable housing up to 20%, they could provide 1 space per unit. And then
Yeah,
it's kind of
that's a win-win.
flexible for them.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly comfortable with that myself, but
Just out of curiosity, what is the reason for having park requirements for parking?
Having requirements at all?
Yeah,
Well, I guess from the municipal perspective, lots of folks are doing away with them, lots of towns and cities. From the developer perspective, they tend to know their market and they know what they think is going to sell. So they are sort of loath to not provide any parking. It becomes kind of a negotiation. That's the minimum, I think, actually. Let me just confirm that. It's the requirement. So it's the minimum requirement. So I think we can come down a little bit if there's some flexibility.
I think 1.2, if they increase the affordable housing, would be encouraged.
Well, I mean, it's sort of six, one half dozen the other. The minimum came from them, so it's basically what they feel they're going to provide. It's not something that the borough kind of imposed on them. They've already kind of designed this out.
Susan, how does that compare to the rest of the WD? The 1.4?
It's a good question, Christina. You're gonna stump me on that. I don't have the zoning up. I'd have to confirm that.
I think it all depends on the use.
And the bedroom mix, I think.
I can pull it really quickly.
Okay. Megan, you had one other, I think?
This was similar to Brian, but on the other side for Shrewsbury, because I think the way that the architecture, and I think this is more for site plan, but I think it looks really nice and interesting on the riverside. I'm just wondering if we could have that same interesting facade. I don't know how. I don't have any suggestions, but something that
Looks good.
there we go.
How's that for encouragement?
Well, except
Yeah.
think about this. The brick facade on that street side reflects the Galleria.
Galleria, yeah.
Architecture. So I think it's a little, I think that's a little, I think what they're doing has some positive benefit from a style point of view. Even if it's just red brick with windows.
Yeah.
That's what is across the street.
And during site plan, I wouldn't mind seeing a rendering from the other side of the bridge with the Galleria up
Yeah.
above. So we can see how this building will
Yeah.
look coming across the bridge, which is going to be it's a long view.
Yeah.
So the building's not going to look as imposing from the other side of the river. But to see how it blends in with the Galleria,
Yeah.
which is an important view of Red Bank for people coming into town
Right.
from the west, I think that render would go a long way.
So,
Be strongly encouraged.
so just to go to the parking compared, for the use for multifamily, 3 bedrooms or more is 2.5 per dwelling unit, and anything under 2 bedroom, 1 and 2 bedroom, it's 2 spaces per dwelling unit.
So this is actually a bit more efficient. But certainly I don't see a harm in providing some flexibility to go lower. If it's not feasible at all for them, then they're just going to provide the minimum. But there's a little bit of give and take there. I also just wanted to make the point, because I am also in the WD zoning right now. And I know that there were some public concerns about the building height. So the existing regulation under the Waterfront Development District is 5 stories and 50 feet. So this would provide for slightly more height in terms of number of feet, but the same number of stories. So it's not a huge change. And I think particularly since this site, as I said, is kind of sloped so far downward, you're not talking about something that's up on a hill. Or
How
even
tall is the easternmost building, the building up top? Same height?
Mm.
Because that's what I thought, was that the back building, because it slopes down, that would be at 60 feet. So
Yeah, I
it
think there's a
matches the
very slight
50 feet
differential.
up front.
Yeah,
That was my understanding.
they're not far off, but the one I think on the riverside is slightly lower, right?
I would say 12 feet is quite generous for a
For the
pergola on a roof.
Well, if you're going to have an elevator tower, you're 10, 12 feet anyway.
Right.
So,
May actually provide some screening for that.
yeah.
That's true. The one other thing, and we incorporated this on the train station redevelopment, is adding the word meaningful to the building massing design and fenestration articulation, where it says building facade should be less than 100 feet. When longer than 100 feet, they shall incorporate facade articulation. We added meaningful facade articulation just to give us some teeth
Yep. that
when
could be
we're
a good
reviewing the
deal.
architecture.
And those elevator towers up top, rather than paint them white where they're going to stand out more visually, Disney uses a lot of go-away blue on their buildings, hoping that they will blend into the sky when you look at them. What's that new ride? Guardians of the Galaxy in Epcot. You look at that building, it very much blends into the clouds. I would rather see some kind of go-away blue instead of white on those towers. I think visually coming over the bridge would look a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or gray.
I think
Someone
that-
wants to launch a study.
It's definitely something I think you all have the authority to look at in
Yeah.
site plan.
And we'll see what that looks like in the site plan.
Yeah.
Does anyone else from the board have any questions?
One other question, just curious where this falls in the floodplain, in that garage level, and if it's affected at all by the new floodplain regulations?
It does need a floodplain permit as far as I'm aware, and, it has to
Like,
meet.
did they get that in already, so they don't have to deal with the added, or is that not relevant here? I actually don't know.
The parking is grade level, right?
Yes, down at the
Yeah,
riverside.
but
yeah.
they're not digging a hole
No.
beyond footings and foundations.
Gotcha.
So Megan, just to your point earlier on the street side versus the riverside, I think we have language in here that already talks about, the site needs to sort of be designed from all around so that it's, comparable quality, but we can make sure that that's very clear. That, the quality needs to sort of match. There's no backdoor, basically.
Just because I know you had mentioned the Shade Tree Commission in some of the language, can you also just add the Environmental Commission just to cover us? Because I think the lighting is fine. I know they like to use invasive and non-invasive and native. So maybe just like couch some of the lighting and
And landscaping.
landscaping with like, and please consider, I don't know, review by the Environmental Commission.
Gonna be part of the site.
Yeah, that will be a part of it, but to Megan's point, the EC is introducing an ordinance for native plant species based on a New Jersey list of native plants. So I'll send you that so you can incorporate that, so it's actually there.
Perfect.
Because I think that's up for council first reading tomorrow.
And then I think just for the notes, where did we land on the minimum affordable housing? No, not affordable
parking.
housing, parking.
Well,
One
initially I
point-
heard 1.2.
1.2.
Initially it was 1, and then I think I heard 1.2.
Wilson, you were against the 1, but the 1.2?
From a market standpoint, I think that they'll choose not to have one. I think it's too few. So, I mean, 1.2 would be my minimum that I'd be interested in hearing about. Does anyone from the public have any questions or comments?
I'll just add that I'm comfortable with one. So if anybody, yeah, as the bonus, I'm comfortable with just one. As somebody stated, you're right next to the train station. Let's consider public transportation.
Marjorie, if you could just go straight to the microphone, it's already on.
Always.
I think this is on, yeah. Marjorie Cavalier, Bridge Avenue, Red Bank. So I was at the December meeting. So the first thing that I did was go to something that was included in their packet, which was a summary of the December meeting. So I just wanted to point out some things that I took away from that meeting that I was hopeful about that I haven't heard yet discussed. Some of the things have been discussed, which is rewarding. So first thing I want to ask, is anybody going to speak for the river here? Or should I also have some concerns like the Lorex for the trees, me for the river. So the first thing was that I don't think came out in the summary enough was that if the density was reduced, there could be more access for the public and it would be less confusing. And maybe that link up could be made with with the piece with the ramp that's owned by New Jersey Transit. So personally, as somebody that uses that a lot and goes over to the Swimming River walk around, you know, that to me is a big turnoff, that we go down this narrow little walkway and then, you know, what? You know, we have a little go back and forth. So that was one thing. So the scale was something that really came out, I think, when the public was there. And when they talk about the aesthetic and the scale, one of the things that was asked for by the public was to your point, what does it look like from the bridge? This is the entrance. Will this obscure our view of the Galleria? Yeah, it's called the Galleria, but it was the Eisner Factory, which was so integral to the establishment of Red Bank as a place, as a workplace and commerce. So, you know, I don't know if these developers knew that at the height of World War I, 5,000 people were employed there. And, you know, there was a relationship with presidents of the United States. So that story should be told. And if you're coming over that bridge and all you see is the big sign that says Navesink Crossing, and you don't have any view of the factory that was so important to us, I think that is just a shame, to put it mildly. And the thing that was said there and is in the summary of the December 2025 comment was to remove that sign that was much too large. And you don't see any other apartment buildings in town that have that kind of advertisement at that size. And maybe do a mural, which hopefully we have to be very mindful about the kind of mural that it is and that it will last. Because the one next to the rail, if anybody's gone down Monmouth Street, is peeling. I mean, it's a shame, you know. So, okay, so get rid of the sign or put it over the entrance so they know where to enter the building, and do something on the side. So the other question about the walkway, and if you're going to have some trees on that, how is that possible? And the fact that one side is like only 3 feet from their property line? Is that allowed anywhere? You know, and there wouldn't be a problem if there were less units, if it was not as dense. I did talk to somebody at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection today, and so the question is about the flood zone, at least what he told me, is it's measured from the middle of the railroad tracks into the property, and that is just 44 feet, and then the rest of the property falls into the flood zone. So, you know, again, less dense, maybe you don't have to be that concerned about it, and if people are going to be spending millions of dollars, and then they have their garage flooded, they're going to come to you, or, well, the council, but so that's a concern. So, then I think, the couple of people are mentioning the street level, and if you look at the pictures, the rendering, it seems like the condos don't start until street level. So I'm not sure where this building is going to look and what we're going to see, if we're going to be able to see anything of Red Bank beyond the building. I agree. I think it could just be the building coming in. And then we have the other large building coming over the Cooper Bridge. So are we going to see any of Red Bank?
The rendering of that exposure would be important to see. I agree with you.
Yeah, the
I mean,
elevation.
there's a rendering in the packet now where right on the river, you see the full building. So that's going to be incredibly obvious as you're coming across the building.
Mhm.
But I'm thinking with the elevation change, the gallery is much further, it's got to be 5. There's got to be an elevation change of 5 to 10 feet
Yeah.
between Shrewsbury Avenue and Bridge Avenue.
Mhm.
So I think visually, you're still going to see the sign on the Galleria.
Right.
But I think the rendering of that rendering, I think, will be important for us to see.
Well, historically, the way the building looks is more important than just being able to see the Galleria sign. So
I agree.
that's my point of view. So Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I add something on the sign, Susan? The way the plan is written, is the sign already understood where it's gonna be and what it looks like, or is it just how specific is it on the sign? Because I want the board to realize the more specific you are in the plan, that takes away room for you to do anything during site plan, because the ordinance already prescribes for where things need to be or what sizes they are, et cetera, et cetera. Site plan, if you come in on a completely variance-free application, is then reduced to, circulation and those sort of things. If they don't need a variance for the sign, which they won't need it if the plan's really specific, then they can put the sign wherever the plan says they can put the sign.
The sign is on it's the same facade as the mural, I believe. So it's as you're coming in from the river. And it's specific as to the size, and also it basically refers to the rendering in terms of the location. So the size is,
That's how
there's,
I fear.
yeah, there's the sign and then the mural. Those are the two sort of components of signage. The sign area is 90 square feet, which is 13 feet high and 8 inches in width. And there's some parameters on height. So it's the measurement of that sign is 90 square feet total. And I think that's shown at the sort of top of the building. And then the mural area would be on the same facade, and that is capped at 448 square feet. It's come down in size since what they proposed initially. And the design has to be coordinated with the borough manager and the visual arts committee.
Could you possibly put that image up on the screen?
Yeah.
Just so everyone can visually see what you're talking about?
Yep, sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, they know what they want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just gonna go down. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so this is facing as you're coming down Shrewsbury Avenue, and it's a building sign. Yeah, wall sign, I should say. So you can kind of see, it's hard to get the zoom in right. So the sign itself would be here at the top. It's in black letters, Navesink Crossing. It'd fit into that area. This whole area would be 90 square feet, which sounds like a lot, but when it's at the top of the building on that facade, I don't think it's enormous. And then the rest of this facade could be devoted to the mural area. Whether that whole area is full or not, I think is still to be determined, but this is sort of the maximum area that they have to work with. And again, the design of that mural is all subject to the borough.
But Susan, this is in the plan.
This is in the plan. The rendering is in the
So
plan.
typically, the application should look like the plan.
Yeah, and there's language.
Unless the plan uses permissive language that says it should look like this, or this is a sample of what it may look like.
Yeah, and
Other-
the
go ahead.
language currently says, and this was definitely negotiated with the developer, that it needs to be substantially similar to what's in the
Okay.
plan. It
I-
doesn't
and
require it
that's
to be
strong
exactly.
language,
It's
yeah.
pretty strong, yeah.
Yes, so that is what that's what you're gonna see. Because if they come in with something different, you're gonna say that's not substantially similar. So be sure when you adopt this plan that is what you want to see. No,
In the
this is obviously not being
Right,
done tonight.
yeah.
I have a feeling we're carrying this to the next meeting unless I'm
But
mistaken.
the sign is significantly different than what was proposed first. The Navesink Crossing actually was the entire length of that wall. And I believe that that's what Marjorie's referring to, is that it was that huge length of it. And
That got a
Susan and
lot of
I
negative
actually
feedback.
talked about it, and I
Yeah.
kind of said absolutely not. That we've never allowed anything that crazy. It would just look too enormous on that side.
But Mr. Lexstein makes a good point. Right now, the language is really tied very much to the rendering, and it basically says it needs to be substantially similar to this. And if they come to you and they can make that case that it is, then you are somewhat limited in how far you can push them. So you should.
Now,
be
I think
comfortable
also
with that.
the question of murals is a good one. I do worry about murals as a maintenance item that's not taken care of. I mean, you know, they require,
There should be a borough ordinance. As we now have added several murals to town.
right. I mean, if they're maintained, great, but if,
There were many that weren't.
Right.
For a long time.
Right. Right.
This would look terrible
if it were PLA.
if it were peeling.
Yeah, right.
I'm pretty sure that the visual arts committee that's there has something in their operations about maintenance of these signs, because that's who, you know, vouches for the these murals that's going up around town.
But that's not an ordinance.
Well, if they've got any, if they have any sway, how a property owner.
Do they?
It's not a part of the zoning ordinance, but it could be a part of the,
Could be in
yeah, the municipal code.
See, you got the
Yeah.
grass.
I just wanted to circle back to the question of the elevation and the rendering that looks toward the borough and has the gallery in it. So right now, the plan has language that requires them to submit elevations, and we could be clear that that is one that you must see when they come to site plan. That's a very easy change.
For that elevation too, I would encourage language that discourages reflective bright materials on that elevation.
The one that we're looking at right now, or-
Yeah, like right now, the way it's rendered, it's different from the, you know, the brick facades that are facing the Galleria. But there's these kind of like bright white eyeliner details. And I think it's too stark. It's too contrasting. It would kind of jump out at you, you know, and I don't think that would be the right approach for that side of the building. I agree.
got it.
And I think that could, you know, it could be not necessarily eye-catching, but still very attractive.
And do we have,
Anyone else from the public? I'm sorry, Megan, go ahead.
do we have to detail or will there be benches in the walkway? Oh, sorry.
There
Will there be
benches?
benches on the walkway?
I don't see any in the rendering.
I think that was possible based on the width and the amount of space that's giving for the landscaping and the path.
You put a bench there and someone's gonna sit there with a fishing pole and cast it across the sidewalk into the river. And I'm telling you, all they're gonna catch there are eels, having done that as a kid. Right up the street where my grandfather lived there. That's what I foresee a bench causing.
What about seating throughout like the public spaces? I saw those like umbrella tables. I just wasn't sure if that was only like a residence.
That was
only
for the
area.
residents area, their
Okay.
little
Yeah.
courtyard area,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, Sean is correct. We don't have provisions, and now I'm remembering it's because of the space limitations for benches. We do have provisions for the spacing and requirements for trees, at least every 50 feet.
I don't know, we might want to consider, because if the borough is really thinking about this walkway in a serious way of like creating an actual walkway that connects around all the,
Oh, wait, you're talking about, I got confused. You're talking about the walkway for the riverfront, not
Yeah.
the walkway to the riverfront.
oh, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
the walkway
I'm
on
sorry,
the,
I'm
on
confusing
the
myself.
river.
I think we should
I
add some
feel
type
like
of seating.
if we're gonna
Okay.
have benches anywhere, we should have that on public property. It's an easement, I know, but
Yeah.
this is narrow. And as a resident, if I lived there as a resident, you know, I feel like I wouldn't encourage the public to come and hang out. It's a walkway. Come for a walk and then go home. Get a hot dog from Gus. God rest her. Is Gus still alive? I don't know. He's certainly retired. He's retired. His son-in-law runs
son runs it, yeah.
is there now, George. Walk up, get a hot dog and go home. Don't get a hot dog and go down and hang out on a bench on someone else's property just because there's an easement I'm not a big fan of, but like the senior center, put some benches down there. In other places where there aren't people living above your bench, where you're gonna go to the corner and get some cannabis and go sit on the bench and smoke it
I knew.
above my unit. And I did say earlier to Sean, I said, maybe I'll move here. But I don't like the idea of benches. That's just me. All right, back to the public.
Nothing in the plan that precludes that, so it
Yeah,
could be
okay.
discussed.
Bring it up
like-
at the site plan. Maybe people will cheer. The people, all the haters on Facebook, maybe will love the bench idea.
One last thing, which is not in my wheelhouse at all, so I'm gonna say it and hopefully one of you picks it up. Stormwater utilities. So we're looking at all of our drainage throughout town now, and we're sort of at capacity. And these are near inlets, outfalls.
I think that's one thing that was a concern when this was brought to me.
Yeah.
Was the stormwater, but I feel like this is going to be ironed out
Okay.
when it comes to site plan approval.
Do we need anything in the plan to make
Because
sure? 'Cause I'm thinking-
I want to make sure that when this comes before us for site plan approval, that our engineers take a hard look at how this
Yeah.
is going to work when it comes to having stormwater on the site,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't overload our existing system, and because it pours into potential support into the Navasink.
And they will have to bring a stormwater management plan.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
that's a
be
requirement.
A
of
pretty
stormwater management
hefty
plan.
stormwater system.
And is there any language that we could add where the developer has to contribute to these like large infrastructure plans if necessary?
We
Well, they-
have a
do-
provision about offsite improvements.
Yeah.
That they have to fund any offsite utility infrastructure determined
Okay.
to be necessary. And that includes sewer, water, natural gas, and stormwater management.
Well, the DEP is also going to have a say in that runoff, right?
Yeah, but they're not paying for anything.
No, but point well taken, but
Yeah.
they can very well direct what the requirements are.
Yeah.
Right? And then that would fall under the capital requirements.
Does anyone else from the public have any comments or questions regarding this application?
I have one other question. How does the sidewalk, the public way, currently return back and what is its relationship to that little downslope that then connects to the bridge to go over Swimming River Park?
So, and I don't have the Google Street View in front of me, but there's a walkway from the sidewalk up on Shrewsbury that comes sort of down parallel to the driveway. There's some stairs there. There's not, as far as I recall, a way to get anywhere else, adjacent to the site other than going back up to Shrewsbury.
So you have to go down and effectively dead end and then come
Yeah.
back?
And I don't know that many people are doing that now because it's just a parking lot. I think that pedestrian way is basically, if you were to park there, then you would have a way to walk up to Shrewsbury. But currently it's kind of a dead end, as you said, and I think that's how it would have to be, just because of the topography. There's not a direct link to the existing walkway over the bridge.
So there's no way to, like, what if we were to pull the building in slightly off that north
Yeah.
yard setback? Is there a way to connect?
Well, at some point down the road, it's going to connect all the way around town. Keep that in mind.
Right, okay.
Someday.
But how?
Topography is not.
Well, the river walk, especially from this site, should someday be able to connect to the senior center. Because you don't have to deal with the bridge and getting under or around the train tracks and all of that. So, but connecting this to the senior center is more doable in my mind than going the other way.
But I get what Brian.
Right, so that's the walkway, right? Where your pointer is, that goes down to
Yes,
the north?
Shauna, you're controlling that, right? Yeah.
And so currently the proposal dead ends the walkway kind of in that grove of trees? Is that? It
Yes.
comes along the water and then it runs along the water to the north? The public access?
No,
Yeah, like there,
Right.
It wouldn't be able to connect because that goes into the
The marina.
property that owns the Red Bank Marina.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So
Where you
that,
see that dot coming down is actually, I think, one of the encroachments, so.
Yeah.
okay, that's gonna go away, but that's this site. So as you said, it would go up to that grove of trees.
But can it just connect up to the existing?
Because of the
sidewalk?
topography
It's
that's
really-
here, it can't.
You wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to do that without a bunch of switchbacks, which you can't really do because it's right.
And that'll
on
be
the
easier to
street.
see on the site plan.
Yeah.
If no one else from the board has any questions or comments, someone from, you had a question, ma'am? Come on up, identify yourself for us, let us know where you live.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Visconti from eXp Realty, and I live on Wallace Street. I just wanted to know if any of these are going to be for sale. I feel like we have a tremendous amount going up in rentals, but there's no anything here.
I believe they're condos for sale, right?
So some of them will be for
I think
sale?
all of them
Okay.
are proposed to be for sale.
There you go.
I wasn't sure.
Go get it.
And I think you're right, ma'am. Like that is an area that there's kind of lacking is for sale units. So.
Anyone else from the public? Come on up, sir. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Peter Cavalier, Bridge Avenue. I'm the less talkative half of the Cavalier duo. Just a couple of questions to consider regarding some practical issues. The first one being the walkway down by the river. In terms of accessibility, will that be accessible or open 24/7? Or will it be restricted to certain hours and gated off at night or whatever? Does anybody know what?
So it'd be open dawn till dusk, which I think is consistent with borough parks. I don't think there's a plan and there's no provision in the rehabilitation plan for it to be gated. It just does say dawn to dusk in coordination with the borough police department.
Yeah. I think that was a main point that at any point, there should not be a gate where it, again, to look like
It's private.
people from the public right of way have no right down to travel down. We really want to move away from those type of look in the town.
And the other question has to do more with the construction activity. Living around the corner from the Monmouth Street construction of the two new apartment projects. At times, Monmouth Street has had to be closed down during construction to bring in heavy equipment, huge cranes bringing
Which
in-
has destroyed the road,
Yes.
as you know.
To bring in AC units, building materials, cement trucks coming in to pour concrete. And Monmouth Street is much, much less busy than Shrewsbury Avenue. So the question is, will Shrewsbury Avenue have to be shut down at various times to bring in all of this construction equipment? And where is all that equipment going to go during the day when they're working on the building, especially in the early stages? I can't imagine Shrewsbury Avenue near the railroad crossing being shut down during the daytime.
Yeah.
And, the residual effect of traffic on the other streets such as Bridge Avenue and Monmouth Street and Front Street. Just a question to
yeah.
consider.
Yeah, so that's all construction. They've got to follow the construction codes. They've got to make whatever they have to do with the county, with the state, whoever is involved, and the town too. But that's not really this board's jurisdiction.
I understand.
There is a
So-
provision in the draft plan, though, that requires them to submit as part of site plan a construction phasing plan.
Okay.
So the planning board won't get into the details of code compliance and that sort of thing in terms of construction, but they will look at issues like, some of those are unknown right now.
But this
like
is
issues like traffic.
ordinary construction site location between the river, the railroad tracks, the Shrewsbury Avenue being one of the busiest county roads that I know of, particularly during school hours or pickup hours. And not to mention, the construction impacts on the New Jersey transit tracks.
I think
Because
it's
that's
safe
a
to
great-
assume that it's gonna suck for a little while. And I think it's a fair assumption, but they've got to submit a plan that we and our engineer and the borough can review to their satisfaction.
Right,
And
just
during,
talking as a resident, it's going to be a royal mess.
and during, after site plan approval, there is a pre-construction meeting where they sit down with, traffic safety, the borough engineer, everyone, the construction department, everyone kind of gets in a room to kind of iron out the phasing and the timing for when they plan to do road closures so that it doesn't impact existing road closures, emergency road closures. So all of that happens kind of after the site plan where it happens. And unfortunately, everyone wants to start their project at the same time. I don't think as soon as these guys get their site plan approval, they're gonna put shovel to ground. It may be a good year or two out after site plan approval. So hopefully that gives us a break between, you know,
So there's still time
Yeah.
move.
No, I walk everywhere, so I don't worry so much about traffic. I'm thinking of everybody else. But just one final comment, I think it's really the project itself is just too dense, I think, for the property footprint, but it's not just that, it's just the location of this little wedge of land and its proximity to the railroad tracks, to the river, and just a very difficult location, I think, to put a 40 unit building. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that point, what does the developer have as of right to build there now?
We're checking the zone. That's it. Unless you know what it is.
40 units, not to exceed 40 units per acre.
Less. You think you could put a taller building, so the density would be higher, I
Different.
would think, than it is. This is 5 units per acre short of what they could build. Not necessarily what they could build, what the ordinance says.
Right.
Last call. If anyone has any questions or comments.
So we don't accept.
But
comments
Marjorie,
from
you can
Zoom?
come up and ask it.
Yeah.
Because I don't really care what the rules are.
Okay, so this is a question from Carmen, who lives on Rector Place. So. Oh, the Riverwalk. Yeah. Okay. Well, she's on the riverside. So, yes. So she wanted to know if there's some way of incorporating into the plan how they're going to address the flood issue based on the riparian side of things. So is there some way of putting that in the plan that would give you some leverage going forward?
I think that's a state issue.
So that will be an appendix?
Well, this is not approval to build a building.
Right.
This is to call this rehabilitation zone something. They still have to come in and apply to build the building, renderings, blueprints, all of that, and a stormwater management plan.
Right, okay, and she also said the chat is disabled, so I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, we're not watching the chat up here. That's why it's disabled.
So residents have to be vigilant and pay attention to what Brian is posting, so we know when to show up, because I'm
Yeah,
kinda
it'll be a
disappointed
public
in the
hearing. It'll
number
be
of
a
people.
public hearing. Everyone will get noticed.
Through Brian.
However, or the borough website, and everyone within 200 feet will get a written notice. Who's got their hand up? Yeah, I don't care. Anybody else? Okay. Make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
I moved it, she seconded it. There we go. All in favor? There we go. Okay. Susan, do we need anything else?
Coordinate with Shauna on making changes, and I guess we'll be back.
So
Which I think is fine.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to make a motion to recommend the changes in the zone to the mayor and council and encourage the developer to hurry back.
Second.
Wait. We did not solidify the parking.
That's right.
Yeah,
On-
really nice. I have to get food for my cat.
Are we doing 1
Minimum,
Two?
I think 1.2 is the number.
But that's a minimum, right? They can exceed that.
Yeah, feel free, yeah, and they may feel like
Yeah,
from
they-
their market research that they want more than that. If they want to, that's fine. 1.2 is a minimum, I think is okay.
There's still discussion happening.
Yeah, I feel like, were there other issues that maybe you might want to see language?
I think Megan has some.
I really, I'm not trying to,
We
go ahead.
carry for further discussion.
What are you
So
gonna
that-
further, what are you gonna discuss
We're
further?
gonna look at
I think, wait, can I?
the language.
Yeah, can I just say this? I don't know that Susan even knows, as we're sitting here right now, all the changes that everyone was throwing at her.
When's our next meeting?
And I think it would be wise for Susan to revise her plan, take her notes, revise her plans, come back at the next meeting and submit so that the board can see what they're actually voting upon, because I don't know that anybody here knows what they're voting upon right now. And I know Shauna hates me, so, what? We can't do April 8th? Oh, what's today? Today,
March 11th.
today's the 11th. Yeah, I can get first, the first of the month. Oh, you want to do March 25th? April 8th.
April 8th.
Dan doesn't want to carry it.
It's up to the board. I just, what you can do is you can approve it subject to the changes being made for final review by the board, and then the board can review it at the next meeting, make sure it's in order. And then you can adopt the resolution at that meeting, because I don't have a resolution prepared tonight anyway.
Yeah, April, we could move it to April if there's gonna be a really nice project that will make you all feel nice and fuzzy on it.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, what she
That
said
makes
doesn't.
sense, yeah.
Who said?
Nice and fuzzy.
33 years, I've never been warm and fuzzy up here. Why? Okay, I'm okay with that.
Concur. I think it's worth getting right rather than having to revise it.
Yeah,
later.
you're gonna carry the public hearing to the next meeting.
We closed the public portion of the meeting.
Okay, then you approve the motion should be that you're gonna recommend this plan to the Borough Council, subject to a final review of the revised plan that incorporates the comments of the board.
At the March
Technical provisions.
20, April.
At the April 8th.
April 18th,
8th.
8th.
Sorry.
Oh, I'll be back from.
So
Florida.
someone just wants
Okay.
to make the motion that.
Yeah, I'm gonna make that
I can't even
motion
repeat what I
to
just
carry
said.
this to
Second
April 8th
motion.
and for a final review with no further notice to the public.
Or public hearing. The public hearing's
Yeah, the
closed.
public hearing's closed.
Okay.
Everyone had their chance.
Okay, do I
Not
have
that I
to,
won't open it up if someone has a
Of course you
significant
will.
question, because I love the public.
do I do a
when they
roll
come.
call or can I do all in
You
favor?
can do it all in favor on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do the roll
Oh.
call, I'm sorry. No, it should be a roll call, I apologize.
Shauna Ebanks, yes. Christina Bonatakis?
Yes.
Dan Mancuso?
Yes.
Louis Demento? Megan Massey? Wilson Bibi? Itzel Hernandez? And Brian Parnigan? Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I love it when you come.
Thanks, Susan.
I really do. Thank you, Susan. Good to see you again.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Second. Aye.
Thank you.